have to be ready, and in some cases, it's not going to be nice. The fight's coming to you on a whole different level. They're loaded for bear. Joe Resinello.
Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo, as always.
They're not going to take this lying down.
On the Crusade Channel, always on air, and always online at crusadechannel.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, oh man, are we going into the breach on the Crusade Channel.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, let us go into the breach. And into the breach, we're especially going tonight. We're on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. We encourage everybody to go to the website, kick the tires, open the hood. You'll want to become a subscriber. Joe Resinello, I hope you don't mind. I want to jump right in. We have plenty of time for promos. People know where to find us, Mike Church and Crusade Channel. I think this is a great conversation. I think all of our conversations are important. We're very careful about the things that we talk about here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. I want to start this way, Joe. Give our audience a flavor of what we're going to be talking about tonight, okay? We're going to be talking about weapons, but unlike the rest of the political pundits and everybody out there, we're not talking about guns, okay? We're talking about spiritual weapons, because we as Roman Catholics, you, I, Mike Church, all the good people at the Crusade Channel, Jonathan, our producer up in Canada, we all know this is a spiritual battle. I don't need to get affirmation of that from the rest of the culture. We know that this is a spiritual battle. This is a culture war, and we need spiritual weapons. We are going to have a serious conversation about the Rosary. Eric Sammons wrote a great article about that, because the Rosary has just been declared, by the way, Joe Resinello, an extremist weapon. Okay. At least I think that's what it was called. We'll get into it. I also want to talk about the lies of the atheists. Joe, I've been wanting to take Sam Harris to the carpet for a very long time. And let me tell you something. I'm not a PhD like he is. I'd like to go toe-to-toe with him. You want to know why, Joe? Because he, along with his nonsensical philosophy and worldview known as atheism, doesn't make sense. And even a couple of jamokes like us could take him down. He's a liar on top of it. And we're going to talk about that too. And we're going to talk finally tonight about not only the examples of leftist intolerance when it comes to any objections to transgender ideology, okay? But Joe, it's not just looking to cancel you or anything like that. They're violent reactions. These people are becoming increasingly violent, even if you just take what just a couple of years ago would have been considered a very normal, insane position on these things. And we're going to get into that too at the Crusade Channel. Always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Joe Resinello, I'm handing it over to you. As people could tell, the veins already popping out of my head.
Well, the first article we're going to talk about is, what's it called? Eric Sammons in Crisis Magazine talking about the Atlantic. It's basically a left-wing magazine saying that the Rosary has become an extremist symbol. Let me just take it from this approach. This is such anti-Catholic fear-mongering. Horrible. Basically, what they're doing is they're paralleling the Rosary. They're basically saying if you pray the Rosary, you're a radical traditionalist, which is absolutely not true. But also, they're kind of equating it with Christian nationalists encouraging physical violence against their enemies. That's not true either.
So not true.
And I mean, this is at the root of it, and they get away with it. It goes along with the narrative, which we've said on this show time and time again. It's the last accepted prejudice. You could say this, you can do this, and listen, you don't have to be Catholic, but you can't say this. But they just get away with it because, again, the press doesn't beat them up over it. No one says anything. And frankly, to be honest with you, I mean, a couple people came out. Bishop Barron came out and spoke out against it. I give him credit.
Did he do that? I didn't hear.
Yeah,
There was a
he did a
response?
2-minute clip. I thought it was fair, and to be honest with you, he addressed it. But this is where, like, our prelates, we have to speak up. Where, and also, frankly, where's the president on
Oh,
something
no,
like
no.
that?
We'll get into
He's
that.
Catholic,
Perfect.
right? He's
No,
Catholic.
that's what.
Where's the
Joe,
president?
Aren't we told he's a devout and faithful Catholic?
Well,
That's
he
what we're
keeps his
told.
rosary beads in his pocket. I mean, where is he on this? And this is what I'm saying. It's the last accepted prejudice. You could speak out against the Catholic Church in any quote unquote like function in polite society. No one cares. And this
Right.
was nothing. And I mean, not for nothing. The Atlantic is a fairly well-read magazine. I mean, I don't read it, but I'm just saying, as far as, it's not like, people read it. You know what I mean?
Joe, two things real quick. Number one, I know this about you. I know this about me. If I'm reading a publication that is conservative, let's say on the political level, okay, is conservative, and they say something that's blatantly untrue, I'm going to say, at least in my mind, I don't know if I email the editor, I'd say that's just frankly untrue, regardless of whether or not I agree with you politically as a publication. People that read The Atlantic, like you said, a well-read magazine, do you think, I mean, I really hope that they don't sit back and say, yeah, those fascist Catholics, they use that rosary as a weapon. Last time I checked, the rosary doesn't shoot bullets. Brings me to my second point. The people we know, Joe Rossinello, in our lives, Father Imbarado, Father Fidelis Mashinsky, okay, and others who have used that rosary as a weapon, you know what it's gotten them? Arrested, put in jail. They go and they use the rosary as a spiritual weapon. You know what happens to them? They get put in the can, is what happens to them.
Well, I don't know about. I mean,
Do you understand where I'm going with that, Joe? It's like,
No, but I don't think they got arrested. Because to be honest with you, the rosary, I pray the rosary publicly. I've never had a problem.
No, what I'm saying is the use of the rosary in public, Joe. In other words, like those, the reason why this gentleman, how I know how to pronounce his name, Daniel Payton, I guess his name is, knows the reason why he's pointing it out is because people in front of abortion clinics use rosaries when they're praying in front of abortion clinics.
I think what he's trying to do, and he's succeeding, is he's linking people who pray the rosary publicly with quote unquote a domestic terrorist group, which they label as Christian. And they see, that's the lie. I mean, like, in fairness, Father Fidelis goes into private property. Now, I'm not talking about the spirit of the law versus, like, in all honesty, that's part of civil disobedience. You break the law, you get arrested. He's willing to do that. That's his business. But if you protest and I've done it, I've gone to Montclair, the Rosary facility, not the abortion facility in Montclair. Yeah. They have a designated area. You stand in the designated area. They permit you to pray. This is in liberal New Jersey, in a very liberal city in New Jersey. I've never had a problem. I pray the rosary every month in front of a church on the sidewalk. I've never had a problem. So ultimately, it's a lie. And that's where, like, that's the one point I wanted to bring out. There's nothing wrong with praying the rosary, and there's nothing radical about praying the rosary. It's a common prayer. Like, it's not like just one group of Catholics. It's a common prayer. That's number one. Number two, I think, and Salmons is right, I think Catholics have to stop bickering. This is kind of another point of his article, and basically have to this is something you've said, Joe, from the very beginning, circle the wagons around Our Lady. That's one of the reasons why on the first Saturday, I pray the rosary at a church, in front of a church. It's on private property, but it's on their sidewalk or in front of the church, because Our Lady, and this is what Eric is saying, and I completely agree with him, is a rallying point for Catholics. You see, like, some people may not like our style, or there could be another social media commenter, and that's fine, because we're different people that, like, they could say, I don't like Joe Rossinello. I don't like what he says. All right, whatever, then don't listen. What could I say?
Right.
But the rosary is one of those things where It unites people. It's not like someone's on a bullhorn yapping. You're praying. And also historically speaking, it has gathered people together. Patrick Payton, being one example. He would have massive rosary rallies, and it also goes directly to Our Lady, the prayers. And those are the most efficacious prayers that one can basically have. You hand the prayer off almost to Our Lady. She's the closest thing next to Christ that there ever was and ever is. So it's a good prayer, and it's a shame that they get away with it. And frankly, we let them get away with it. And I'm not talking about going there and burning down anything. I'm just talking about, frankly, just demanding an apology, or demanding that magazine, frankly, there should, why do we say, why are people buying the magazine? You know what I'm saying? Like, what do we do? We do nothing, Joe. And it's sad. That's what's sad.
Well, in fairness to you and me here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, we are doing something. I know you're not talking about us, because we're going to shed light on it. Many others have done so. My church and a lot of our Catholic brothers and sisters out there. But Joe, you mentioned it, and we always say it respectfully, but you want to say to the USCCB, dudes, your excellencies, your eminences, okay? Guys, can you make a statement once, just once, condemning anti-Catholic bigotry just once? Could you do that? Could you maybe come out with a statement or a letter asking President Biden, whose side you seem to take all the time, okay, asking him to come out with a strong statement against this? This guy, Daniel Payton, needs to be shut down by the Atlantic. Issue a retraction. Issue an apology. You know they ain't going to do it. We know that that's not going to happen.
I'd say
why now, but I'm leading somewhere, Joe, and I want your response. All right, if you don't mind, at the Frontline with Joe and Joe on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Joe, how much of this is fear of the left? And here's what I mean by that. When you see a gun, you know what to fear. You fear the gun. You don't want to get shot. Okay. Why do you fear the rosary so much, Mr. Payton? Why? What's the problem? Like Joe Rasinello said, we stand in front of a church, or we go into the town square, like in front of a city hall. I did that here in Arizona when I got here with a group of Catholic men on a Saturday morning at 7:00 with nobody there. So there wasn't even people that could get offended by it, even if they could be offended by it. I personally think, Joe, because St. Paul said we are in a spiritual battle. Well, Joe, if we're in a spiritual battle, the other side knows our weapons. They know our weapons. They know our most effective way. You just said it yourself. The most efficacious prayers goes to Mary. You know why? Because my prayers are dirty. Mary cleans them up and then asks the Lord and presents them to the Lord. So the thing is, they know, and I love your response to this, they know that it is a powerful weapon in the spiritual battle. They know it's our weapon of choice, as Eric Salmon said in Crisis Magazine. Joe, how much of this is fear that more and more Catholics, in particular in America, will be praying the rosary, so they want to try to take it down a couple pegs?
Well, a couple things. Barron said in his response that has been the result, that rosary sales supposedly spiked, and that's great. God works in mysterious ways. I don't actually, though, think that they think I think they laugh at it. I'll be completely honest.
But here's my question, Joe. I'm sorry to cut you off. I stopped doing that a long time ago, but I do want to chime in. Then if he laughs at it, then why is Payton writing this article? Because he seems to be very serious here.
Well, I think that they want to fearmonger it and basically label it like almost like the word, like they call people racist at the drop of a dime, and basically to stop basically people from coming together. I don't think they think the rosary, we could be saying anything. I don't think they know that it's like a weapon of choice, that from Lepanto. Most Catholics don't even know that, sadly. And I've always found over the years that the liberal press, when they report on Catholic events, you would think that they would put somebody there that actually has some insight. And I'm not talking about some pious Catholic reporter, but just someone who at least understands the faith. I mean, to be honest with you, the coverage, even really quote unquote respectable, periodical, sometimes you read it and you're like, gosh, this person has no insight into this. I mean, you would think you have a little background.
Right.
But what I do think is they're trying to do is basically, again, label you. They're grouping you in like with something that we're not. We're
Well,
not
that's a
domestic
political, but
terrorists.
then that's a political
Of
strategy.
course it is. This is all political. It's all political, Joe. They're grouping you in with like just like what they did to parents. Here you have parents going to a school board. Basically, they weren't going there with pitchforks and torches. They were just upset, and rightfully so.
Sure.
They weren't violent. They were voicing their opinion in a public area, which basically that's what it's for. And they call them domestic terrorists. It's the same thing. You're vilifying your enemy through words, and words stick because the press say them over and over and over, and people just regurgitate.
Well, well, it's like you mentioned, and you say all the time. All right. Unfortunately, like I don't like to criticize Joe, the American people. I don't. Okay. I don't like the views of many Americans. Okay. I don't want to denigrate anybody. I certainly don't want to be denigrated. But it seems like that's what this guy painting is all about. Let's liken these rad trads, right? Like Joe, I guess you're a rad trad. I guess I'm
No,
a rad.
but I don't
trad.
think it's. You see, that's another thing that you would think he knows what he's talking. Because I'm not a rat trad.
Neither am I.
And like my thing is like I'm a Catholic, and the thing is, not saying they're not, but I hate labels. Like it's not even like a rat. It's not like you're going to some like high Latin rite mass. Like the Rosary is a very common prayer.
Right.
It's common for like the Pope prays the Rosary, and someone who could be illiterate will pray the Rosary. It's a common prayer, and
Right.
I listen. They're just doing what they did to the parents who went to those meetings. This is what they do, and this is why the press is dangerous.
But go
it's
ahead,
so
Joe.
sad. It's just
But
sad.
it's sad. But it's sad because it shouldn't be just you, me, and a bunch of Catholic bloggers out there and podcasters and radio station owners like Mike Church at the Crusade Channel. It shouldn't be just us. Like this is one of those times where you want to throw up your hands, call Cardinal Dolan on the phone, just using him as an example, and say, "Listen, Your Excellency, can you help us out, man? Like, can you please help us? Because you're in the most powerful diocese in America. You run it. You're a cardinal. You got a red hat. Let me tell you something, Your Eminence. You got a lot of power, okay? And you could shut this type of stuff down. Why are you letting us be ravaged by the wolves? And people like Daniel Payton, okay? Panitin, whatever his name is. Joe, they're wolves. Now, we know
no doubt about it.
But
There's
the guy
no doubt
who
about
carries,
it.
so what have you always said to our audience at the Crusade Channel? I never knew what it was. The staff that's carried by the
crozier,
cardinal,
the
the
stick.
crozier. All right, it's a stick. It's a stick. It's meant to stick the wolves right in their face. Okay, you want to call Cardinal Dolan and say, "For all your guffaw, oh, everything's great. Come on in, Cardinal. We're getting eaten alive." And if you said something to the Atlantic about their anti-Catholic bigotry, you want to know and get some others to do the same. Not just a lone voice like Bishop Barron. God bless him. Okay. If you guys came together instead of supporting baby killing Joe Biden and Nancy Pelosi. Okay. But you're just throwing us to the wolves. That goes for Tobin and Supich and the rest of them. And I use Dolan as an example because I would say that Cardinal Dolan, I still have a modicum of hope for, even though I don't for Cardinal Tobin and I don't for Cardinal Supich and I don't for Wilton Gregory. Okay, I don't. I pray for them, but I don't have any hope for them. But Dolan can get out on a megaphone, Joe. He could shut this stuff down like that in a major market. Okay, in a major market for Atlantic Magazine, New York market, particularly amongst Catholics, and let these Catholics know these people are bigots and call them bigots.
Oh, because they are.
They are.
They are, and that's the truth. I mean, and frankly, this is where again financial boycotts work. You don't buy. I mean, I don't read that clearly. That's not my cup of tea. But people shouldn't give them a dime, and that's how things work. I mean, we're seeing that with CNN right now. New CEO, and he's shaking things up.
He's
Why?
begging.
Because Joe, the ratings stink. And you're in a business. You're there to make money. CNN, that's not a public service. They're there to make money. Your ratings stink. And they're trying to change that. Well, it's the same thing. You pull something like this, you basically don't support them financially. Now, again, most Catholics, I don't know any actually that read the Atlantic, to be honest with you. But this is the type of stuff that, again, I think we could be a little bit more vocal with. You have like TFP, they do their thing.
Sure.
You have Bill Donahue, he speaks out. But to be honest with you, this is clearly anti-Catholic hatred, and it's accepted, and no one cares. No
Well,
one cares.
I am of the view that the more we pray it, and then the more people who join us in praying it, and the more after that, the more after that, the more after that, those prayers are going to be answered. Lily is in the chat room. Just one quick response, Lily. No, the Rosary is not anti-Semitic. I don't know where you heard that. Whoever gave you that piece of information was feeding you a bunch of lies. Okay, because praying any Catholic prayers, particularly the Rosary, is not anti-Semitic. Joe, wrap up. I want to move on at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Very quickly, quick quote from Eric Sammons. I think it sums it up. Catholics of all stripes need to realize that it is Catholicism itself. As you said, Joe Resinello, you're Catholic. You're not radical, traditionalist. You're a Catholic. It is Catholicism itself that is radically traditionalist. It's a movement in the eyes of the world. Instead of fighting amongst ourselves in an effort to appear more acceptable to the world, it's time we unite under the mantle of Our Lady with the Rosary as our weapon of choice. All I got to say to that, Joe Resinello, is amen.
That's it.
That's it. Now, Joe, I tell you what, I'm tired, and I've been tired for a long time, of Sam Harris. Okay, I'm tired of his disingenuousness. I'm tired of him sitting there on Bill Maher and wanting to know why people are so violent. All you religious people are so violent. Well, we're going to take the next several minutes here, Joe, at the Crusade Channel. Number one, to call him out on his lies. Okay, his justification for those lies, and yeah, I want to call him out on some of his hypocrisy. So with that, Joe Resinello, I'm handing it over to you.
Well, basically, Sam Harris, he was caught and I definitely recommend all people who are listening to this podcast to definitely Google this. Hear it for yourself. Basically, he says, the ends justify the means. There's these two gentlemen who are kind of interviewing him, and he basically says that as far as the cover up went for Hunter Biden, that's justified.
Yes.
And he also goes on to say, the other gentleman, with regard to anything that has happened with regard to quote unquote conspiracy, is justified to get rid of Donald Trump. And you see, this is where, again, and the guy actually stopped short in the interview. He's like, wait a minute. Like, he's saying this is not a democratic process, to say that.
Right.
And he kind of hedges himself, but then he goes forward with it again. And the reason why we bring this story up is he's actually saying this.
Right.
This is exactly what's going on right before your eyes. People don't care that it's not fair. They don't care. Like, you take the Russian crap that went on for 18 months that cost the taxpayer $40 million. I'll be honest with you. If I was in the GOP, I would have made them pay it back. I would have said, I want that out of your coffers. You were either one of two things: completely incompetent, that you couldn't find something that existed, or there was nothing.
Right.
You have to come to that, as an objective.
In which case, you're a liar, because you
One
knew
of
that
two.
there was no real evidence of
One
this.
of two things. You're
Right.
either completely incompetent, that you could not find something after spending $40 million in 18 months, or you're a liar.
Right.
One of two things. You have to be honest. If you're being honest with yourself.
Well, one thing I like about this story, okay, and you and I, we do a lot of reading for the Frontline with Joe and Joe. We listen to a lot of different authors. We listen to Mike Church, the Crusade Channel, a lot of podcasts. I love John Nolte. John Nolte takes off the gloves, figuratively speaking, right? Now, here's what he's saying. This is Mr. Democracy. We need to believe in democracy and consensus. Well, the problem is, Sam, is that consensus in 2016 was that Donald Trump should be president of the United States. Okay. And in 2020, there's a lot more people that voted for him also. Okay. And any story that comes out is fair game. And it's not for you to say what people see or don't see. Now, here's what Nolte says. He said, in other words, based on Joe Rossinello, the interview you're talking about, I was very, by the way, shocked that that interviewer stopped him. All right, I was actually shocked, but in a very pleased way that he stopped me. Nolte says Harris is okie dokie with institutions misleading the public if he agrees with the cause that those lies support. And in his case, he actually had the nerve, Joe, like the real nerve. And not that it means anything, it doesn't. Okay, but he tried to create a straw man out of it. Is that, well, Hunter Biden's corruption, number one, is nothing compared to Trump University, which, Joe, my brain almost flew out of my head when you sent me the clip and I was watching it. Okay, and it doesn't really involve Joe Biden. What are you talking about? The whole story involves Joe Biden and Hunter Biden and foreign relations with other countries. Okay, and getting bribed. All right, American foreign policy being geared in a certain way. In other words, because Hunter Biden was making money, you're going to compare that to Trump University? So he's a liar. And Nolte points that out. But here's what I want to talk about. You mentioned the ends justify the means. Okay, very Machiavellian. That's what we always hear in politics. Machiavellian. I read The Prince when I was a freshman in high school. I don't know why people constantly have to always talk about The Prince. However, Machiavellian, okay? Ends justify the means, okay? But Sam Harris, you're the one who says you respect democracy. Now you're saying it's okay for the people who are going to vote to not get all of the information out there. You're A-okay with this type of stuff, okay? And here's my point, Joe Rossinello. Should we expect anything different from an atheist? Because Sam Harris, and this, I want to talk about atheism a little bit, he always says, like, when those, well, morality is based on consensus or just whatever makes you happy, blah, blah, blah. So I guess what makes Sam Harris happy is thwarting Donald Trump's chances of becoming president. And he's just perfectly fine with that. But here's the thing, Joe. He can't talk about ethics or morality because he's an atheist. So he's just perfectly fine with lying about it. And where are people calling him out on this?
People don't care, particularly the Trump haters. They don't care. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of when Biden got accused of sexual assault, that woman. And we covered this story. And basically, like, the woman in the New York Times said, I believe the woman who said this, and I'm still voting for him.
That's right.
See, this is the Trump derangement. It doesn't matter. This statement, and I'm saying this objectively, I'm not saying this as a conservative, as a Catholic. I'm saying this as an objective observer. This was such an un-American interview. Like this, and the guy actually stopped him and called him on it. Like, this epitomizes anti-Americanism. I don't care if I agree with you or disagree with you. You have a right to basically be elected or not be elected. If the people want you in a fair and free election, well, that's the way it goes.
Joe, you and I did not vote. You and I did not vote for Barack Obama, but I accepted that he was the president of the United States.
Well, Joe, you also notice Joe Biden is in the chair. Have I done anything? Have I set things on fire? Have I hurt anybody? No. And I'm never going to either, by the way.
Right.
Ever.
Let's
see what happens if Trump wins in 2024. You see, this is what I'm saying. Like, Joe, these people, like, and frankly, Mike Knowles gets it completely right. He says anytime they say it's about democracy, substitute the word democracy with liberalism. It simply is this: I don't agree with you. And you're substituting just because I don't agree with you doesn't mean that I don't agree with democracy. It's another play on words that it's been bought and sold by the public. And people don't think, Joe, I'll be honest with you. And I'm not claiming to be the smartest tool in the shed or the sharpest tool in the shed. I am not. They don't look past their hand. They can't see past their hatred.
Well, here's the thing, Joe, real quick, okay? And I want to take down Sam Harris a little bit. And here, if he ever watches this, Sam, you're more than welcome to come and mix it up at the front line with Joe and Joe, okay? But you know what, Sam Harris, what this shows, you're full of crap. I've been watching you for years, okay? You and Dawkins and Hitchens when he was alive and the rest of you. I'm pretty well informed on what you guys propose as atheists, okay? And you peddle all these lies about Catholicism, about religion in general. Richard Dawkins always says, well, more people have died in wars of religion than have died in any other cause in human history. That's a lie. The Encyclopedia of War says that very few people, as a matter of fact, in the history of war, Joe Resinello, percentage-wise, have died as a result of a war on religion. It all depends on how you define a religious war. But Sam Harris, and this is what pisses me off, Joe. He always tries to come across as an honest broker. He just blew that narrative right out of it. He's not an honest broker. He's not honestly questioning things. And I got another piece of information. I'm going to hand it over to you. Okay. These so-called wars of religion over the course of however many millennia that they always want to point to, Harris, Dawkins, Dennett, all of them. Okay. Joe, we'll put it like this, within the lifetimes of our parents, okay? My father was born in what, 35? Your father was born in what, 36?
36.
Something like that. From then till now, atheist regimes, people who agree, yes, Sam Harris, you agree with Mao, or he would have agreed with you about God. So would Hitler. So would Stalin. So would Castro. So would Pol Pot. All of them are all atheists. And they collectively are responsible for 100, more than that actually, but let's keep it at 100 million deaths, having nothing to do with war, by the way. Just straight up murder by people who agree with you, Mr. Harris. Okay? And yet you never want to make it seem like atheism should have anything to, like they say, you as an atheist, you bear no responsibility for that. But every time a Catholic, okay, a self-identified Catholic does something wrong, okay, you want to blast the church. They say, well, it's a problem with the religion. Well, the genocides of the last 100 years are a problem for your religion, Mr. Harris, your atheist religion. And I defy you to come on the front line with Joe and Joe and talk to us about this. Because it's plain as the nose on your face, okay? Your religion is more violent than all the other religions combined in terms of sheer numbers. So let's get that straight. And I'm tired of him.
I mean, I hear you from an atheist.
He's not an honest broker.
I mean, no, not even close. I mean, clearly you're not going to, that this is where people, one of the many mistakes, you can't get morality. You can't legislate morality. We've said this time and time again, but you also, atheism, if there is no higher power to govern you, like atheism is, frankly, when you don't believe in anything, it's the survival of the fittest. If I can do something, I'm going to get away with it. If I can get away with it, I'm going to do it. And whatever. And that's how people operate.
Joe, isn't that what the story's about?
This is what it's all about. If I get away, I'm going to do it. And frankly, I don't care. I don't care about you. And again, this is not an American statement. And it's not, it's not a threat to democracy. Actually, Harris is a threat to democracy. And what these people don't understand is power flips. This could be used against you. And it's dangerous. I'm at least objective enough to say it. This, I would not be for on the other side. You can't do this. Because to be honest with you, this is what happens when there's violence. You know, we're coming to a situation. They're not, we said this last week, we're going to say it again. They're not going to stop. This affidavit bull crap, this is another disgrace.
Right.
A legal disgrace. Excuse me. I read this week the governor of New Hampshire, Chris Sununu, who is not exactly a Trump lover, to be honest with you. He said this past week that they blew it. And the way I was kind of reading it was they blew it from the perspective of you just gave this guy juice. You blew it. And he was talking about Garland and Biden on this action.
On Mar-a-Lago?
Oh, my gosh. This was such an F up in plain English. And I'm saying that as an objective. I'm talking about the damage, the political damage you did. Let's not even talk about the violations of his rights. No one cares about this, just like they don't care about Harris, because by any means necessary, get rid of him, even if they have to kill him. They don't care. But my point is, this was such a screw up. Like, this is the derangement syndrome. You're supposed to be smart. And yet they say this because they get away with it, Joe.
Right.
They
Right.
get away with it.
But that reporter, that interviewer, that's why I say I was so impressed with him, like, because he really stopped them, Joe. He really stopped them. No, he really says, so you're saying that, in other words, you don't believe in democracy? I'm paraphrasing. But he really stopped him in his tracks. I was so surprised because you want to know what? Not many people go back at Sam Harris. They think he's an intellectual giant. I think he's an intellectual neophyte. I think atheism is an illogical position. I know sincere atheists. I'm not trying to offend them. Okay. But the sincere atheists I know, they have their problems with the religion. I get it. They have their problems with the Catholic Church. But Sam Harris gets up there laughingly a lot of the times. Dawkins has gone out there and said to his sycophants, you see people who believe in God, mock them to their face. Sam Harris does the same thing. Sam Harris thinks the worst movement in the world is radical Islam. He he makes Islam really his focus because he really came to prominence during 9/11 after that happened. And Islam has been dangerous, no question about it. But then he extends from Islam to Catholicism and to all Christianity and then to all religion. And in the meantime, you shake your head and say, dude, you believe in nothing. You believe like John Nolte was saying, you believe the ends justify the means. Sam Harris, there's nothing prohibiting you, nothing whatsoever. If you wanted to cut somebody's throat, if you knew you could get away with it because it would benefit you, you're an atheist, dude. You have no moral restraint. Okay. And you want to say that the worst thing that ever happened to humanity is Islam? Atheism is the worst thing that ever happened to humanity. And Sam Harris gets up there. He goes on Bill Maher all the time. Okay. And he sits there and he just wants to sound so like he's so even keel and he's so level headed. And the rest of us, Joe, we're just a bunch of angry Catholics, right? And he's the even keel guy. He's the super duper smart guy in the room. And he just admitted in an interview that it's okay to lie to make sure you achieve your political goals. I don't know how after this guy's going to have any credibility, Joe.
Oh,
I don't.
But again, everyone's fine with that, Joe. I'm going to be honest with you. I would be interested in like a poll. Like people are completely fine with that. That's the sick part. You see that you talk about why our system isn't working. This is one of the reasons. You can't be fine with that, whether you like Trump or not. I would not be fine with that to get rid of Joe Biden, to create a myth, to get rid of him. I'm not fine with that. We have to vote him out. I want a free and fair election and vote him away.
Right.
That's how it works.
I'm not. Can I ask you something? Can I ask you something that you brought up here at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com? You said it before, so I'm not saying anything I think crazy. Sam Harris is saying now it's okay to lie about Donald Trump so to get rid of him. He's an atheist. He has no moral restraint. To him, the ends justify the means. Do you think that in his mind, if Donald Trump, you said before, if Trump got reelected, they're going to try to kill him? I could see Sam Harris going in an interview saying, you want to know what? I'm just totally fine with that. I really see that.
I think it would be, I mean, God forbid that was to happen. I don't know how you can get away with that, to say it. I think that'll be said at kitchen tables. And I think that it'll be watched, like they'll do the coverage if God forbid that was to happen. But I think a lot of people, it's like when Rush Limbaugh got cancer. There was some nasty crap thrown around. Nasty. People, listen, Joe, this is why our system isn't working, because it only works with moral people. And frankly, America is not really that moral overall. There are moral people in America.
Yeah.
But sadly, it's run by powerful people. The Uniparty runs America. That's the truth. That's the way it is. And frankly, a lot of people are governed by basically raw power. I can do something, so therefore I am. That's how people operate, Joe. I mean, that's how they operate in the corporate arena. As much as I can do and get away with, I'm going to do.
Well, Joe,
and that's how people live their life. And
I know.
frankly, we shouldn't be surprised because the leadership reflects the people.
I know.
This is like, I'll be honest with you. I've heard people say this is the best we can do. Well, actually, yes, it is. Because to be honest with you, this is what happens when you lose your moral compass. You get this.
Right.
And this is why, to be truthful with you, we're not going to dig our way out of it politically. Like, of course we're going to vote, of course we're going to speak, of course we're going to work within the system, but the problem is much deeper. I mean, I've read some of the comments on some of like our what's it called videos, and people said there is not one man that can fix this. It's demonic. It is, Joe. It is. It's
It's
pure and simple
It's pretty
demonic.
deep. Listen, it's pretty deep. I do think that in answer to the times, okay. And if you look at, let's say, Donald Trump and what we guys like you and me got from Donald Trump, particularly in the area of judges, we've gotten the fight back. Basically, we've gotten for him a man of his times, perfect, we got I don't mean this disrespectfully to Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but we kind of got lucky that we got 3 Supreme Court nominees, and he had the stones to stand behind them. Whereas the George Bushes of the world, the Mitt Romneys of the world, and others would have backed down, particularly with Kavanaugh. Okay. Trump stood by them. We now have the fight in our hands. In other words, the Supreme Court has signaled we're out of your culture war. We're going to continue to get out of your culture war. You fight it out. That's what states are for. Now we've gotten it back. But now it comes down to what you said, Joe Rossino. Are we willing to fight within our states, like in New Jersey or Arizona, to say, well, I want the politics of Arizona to be this. I know that you don't. And we fight it out in the state legislatures rather than on a federal level. But now the response, Joe, it's one thing to say the Supreme Court stole your power. Okay, I would agree with that. We've had an activist Supreme Court for the last 70 years. I don't think anybody could deny that. Okay, they've been very activist, mostly on the liberal side. Okay, well, now they're not. Now they're saying that we're not being activists. And now you states have to decide these things for yourself. Well, we'll see if people are going to take that "I don't care" attitude that you abundantly point out here at the show all the time. And you're right. People are very apathetic, I guess that's the word. Or are they going to start caring because now the fight is theirs? They could now get involved in their local politics and have an effect. We saw that in Virginia. Okay. Now you mentioned that we're really our moral compass is really way off base, Joe. I mean, I just don't know. I watched Matt Walsh's "What Is a Woman." Okay. I like Matt Walsh. I like him a lot. Okay.
Sure.
And I watched it. Joe, I can't believe the things I hear coming out of the mouths of people who purport to be sane and educated human beings. And my point in bringing this up is that John Daniel Davidson in the Federalist, he wrote an article that basically saying that the transgender movement is not just intolerant. We already knew that for a long time. They're intolerant. They're becoming barbaric.
I want to
violent.
actually, before we get to the story, I just want to say like something about the other stuff. I think the problem too, Joe, it's like there's circles. Like if you were to draw like a diagram of power, and this is why people don't buck, like you mentioned, Bush, because politicians were just used, like even senators and even the president. It's just one circle of power in the country. The problem is, no matter who's the president, even if the most conservative man or woman was elected, that's just one small circle of power. The problem is, all the circles are run by liberals, big pharma, banking, big
Big
tech,
tech.
the media. And
Right.
the problem is the smart guy, like say like a Bush, a Romney, they know that. So they play it. You can't poke the bear too hard. That's why McConnell is McConnell. He knows that. He sees it clearly. That's why, to be honest with you, the politics, it's just one piece of it. These people, and here's another thing, when you poke a bear and you really affect the way they do things, you see like what we're seeing with Donald Trump. They crush you. They don't do it with guns. They do it by phone calls in offices. That's how corporations move when they move leadership. You see, that's the problem. Academia, all of the money. This is what runs everything. And that's the problem, Joe. They don't let you maneuver in the system. And that's why the culture has to change. We have removed ourselves. Like, people, again, they don't see it because, frankly, to be honest with you, most people, some people can weather it financially, so they don't care. And the people who get crushed, frankly, they're not seeing clearly.
Do you see that? Okay, let's stay on this a second. Well, no, we could use this as a segue into the transgender movement. But do you see at least hints or signposts out there that the culture is, albeit slowly, shifting? Because if this was 20 years ago, Joe, overturning Roe versus Wade would not have been the most popular thing to do. Right now, I'm not going to say that people are in favor of it, but people are kind of indifferent to it. In other words, people used to be more pro-abortion in this country, but it's been because of, let's say, what you talk about all the time, particularly the witness of Roman Catholics praying the Rosary in public, March for Life, and in their churches, in front of their churches, and the whole 9 yards. Okay. We're getting backlash against the transgender movement, which we're going to talk about. We're getting a lot of backlash in a positive way. In other words, where if you say substitute the phrase spiritual battle for culture war, well, I do think that we're turning a little bit of a corner. Now, like you said, that will translate into politics. You have to still vote. You have to still get involved in politics and make your voice heard and everything else. But I do think that we may be turning the corner a little bit.
Well,
And I
they
do
push
see
too
shades of that.
far, but I'll be honest with you, they still have the upper hand because they run everything. You
Right
see,
now is what? No, right now
well,
is
again, it's just politics. That's Joe. It's just one circle. Like, again, there's a lot of other circles of power. Like just you could just take Google, Apple, and Facebook. And do you know how much power that they have, that they wield? And they're not elected. Like, do
right.
you know how much power the mainstream media
But
has?
Joe, are we? Let me ask you. I only want to be clear of what you're saying, though. But then, are you? I don't think you're saying this, but I'm going to put it like this: Are we helpless? Then is that what you're saying?
To a degree, to a degree. Joe,
So
I hate to
okay, but
say
you were
it.
about to say
To a
until when?
degree, because like what we're seeing Donald Trump do, Donald Trump is trying to rock the cradle a little bit in ways that, say, George Bush and Joe Biden aren't. Joe Biden, when he finally got in the chair, he said, "We're now America's back to business." He was right. It's the business of the power brokers. See, Donald is not about the business of the power brokers. To a degree, he isn't. He plays the game too, but he's shaking that tree a little bit. He's putting tariffs on those Republicans. They don't like that. They like that cheap labor. He's putting constitutionalists on the Supreme Court. Democrats don't like that. I'm coming after you, sir. You're poking the bear. You
Okay,
don't
but
poke.
let me ask you a question. All right, now let's stay on this a second. I'm playing a little devil's advocate. Okay, they're going after him, but those 3 Supreme Court justices are still sitting there, and the
Correct.
judges in the federal judiciary are still sitting there.
Correct.
So
But
what I'm
here's
saying is,
another
I
thing.
know what you're saying
I
about
get
power
it. He
brokers.
got some. There was some room there, but ultimately, he's not the president.
But
Donald
does he
Trump
need?
is
But here's my
no, but
thing.
and he
Does
may
does he
not
need to
be.
be? Does he need
But
to
this
be?
is my point, Joe. They're not like these people. You're not playing with like the tough guy in the schoolyard. These are powerful people. Powerful
I think
people.
sometimes you underestimate the power that the American people have in our system of government. I think you're right. Most people are apathetic. I will not disagree with you on that. I don't. Okay. It's unfortunate. I think most people should be politically active. I think if most people knew what the left stands for, they would get more politically active. I think they're starting to. Okay. But I do think the American people have more power than, respectfully, Joe Rossinello, you're giving them credit for. I think that no, under our constitutional system, people should realize what kind of power they have and try to exercise it. Now, Donald Trump might get crushed, but now they have to try to crush an entire movement. And whether you like it or not, I'm not going to self-identify, and I know you're not. I'm not MAGA. Okay, I voted for Trump twice. I'm not MAGA in that way. Okay, but nonetheless, I think he started people thinking along the lines that we are run by, as you say, Joe Resinello, power brokers
He
and
did make people think that
and
because we are.
oligarchs.
We are. That's
I
undeniable.
just think we have more power than like I say, Joe, always respectfully
No,
to you
I
because
get it.
I know
Listen,
you
I
speak
get it.
from your heart, but I think we have more power than that, and I think we should try to exercise
I
it.
wish, Joe, I wish I thought that. I mean, I think before that happens, you have to hit them. That's why I always say it's financial. You have to hit them where it hurts, money. People aren't willing to do that. We could have more power. I think we'd have to be pushed further. People are not there yet. What I mean by that is not violence, where people are just like, listen, I can't eat. I can't eat. Like my electric bill was $1,200 this month. I can't eat. Then you'll start seeing people like we're not there yet, like to use their brains. But frankly, it's funny. I talked to a friend of mine I grew up with. He lives in California, and he said it. People like he said it. People are willing to give up freedom for comfort. There's a lot of people like that. A lot of people. They're not willing to go out on the limb. Even what we do. They're not willing to basically speak truth to power. They're not, because they still want to get invited to the barbecue. They still want to have comfortable lives because they still can at this point in time. But as Archbishop Chaput said, that only lasts for a period of time. It's not going to be forever. And frankly, it's getting worse and worse. Economically speaking, strictly dollars and cents, forget about the culture war, forget about the social issues. The middle class right now in America is getting crushed.
We're getting hosed, Joe Resinello.
Crushed. And I've said this time and time again. Listen, if you're an upper middle class guy or you're an upper class guy and you're making some money and you want to vote for this bull crap, you're free to do it. That's your business. I disagree with you.
But here's the thing then. When that guy, that hypothetical guy you're talking about, Joe Resinello, when his 8-year-old son comes home from school and says, "Daddy, teacher told me I could be a girl and I want to identify as a girl," we'll see how much his $1 million bank account helps him have to process that. And then maybe
I
he'll
get
wonder,
what you're saying.
maybe I shouldn't have been so
but
complete.
that's even Joe. I'll be honest with you. That's a point, but that's a small percentage. Most boys, to be honest with you, don't go down that road. I'm just going to be honest with you.
No, Joe, but we're not talking about
no, but
how
I'm just
many
saying,
kids
even
go down that road. We're
in
talking
terms
about
of
the teachers
effeminate
union.
boys, that's a small that's not the main that's not, it's sort of like, to be honest, that's a percentage. I'm not even saying trivializing it, but like you look at a lot of how boys operate, that's not going to be the majority of people. I'm not trivializing the behavior. My point is, people, until they're uncomfortable, Clinton hit it right on the head. Money. You want to take power from these people? I've said it a million times. Stop giving them money.
But then
They
you're
were just
admitting but then you're making my point that we have more power than we
but
we
we
think,
do, but
because
we
if
don't
money turns a
exercise it,
dial,
Joe. But
think of
people
it this
are not willing to do it.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, but if we keep pressing the message out there, Joe, as we're doing, that's why one of the reasons, of course, why we do the show at the Frontline with Joe and Joe and the Crusade channel is to keep getting the message out there. Why? To raise or help in our way, our small Jamoke, New Jersey way of raising the consciousness of people and asking them, how about this, Joe? You mentioned Amazon, Apple, and Google. Okay. You could ask, as we will on this show, to everybody out there, can you live without Amazon, Apple, or Google? And the answer
I
to
think
that
the better question is, will you? And the answer is no.
Okay, no,
See,
but
that's the sick part.
that's why we have to help raise people's consciousness. If
But
you do support these companies, and they do have a lot of power and a lot of money, let's face it. I think Amazon's over $1 trillion market cap right now.
oh, please.
They have all this money to try to emphasize to people, when you buy a product off of Amazon, you good people out there who listen to us on the Crusade channel at the Frontline with Joe and Joe, or on social media, okay? you are putting money in Amazon's pocket. You are
Totally get
contributing
it.
to their
Totally
wealth.
get it. But that's coming from people like if you're a religious person and you have that rigor and discipline, and frankly, if you have, because you have to be a person who follows Christ, there is a certain element of discipline and rigor and principle. We don't have, that's where the culture is not there. See, people don't live principled lives. They live lives based upon money. It's driven. Think about the people you work with, Joe. Again, think about the people you grew up with. Money, money, money. It's about that. Think about how people operate, to be honest with you, in relationships with the opposite sex. Pleasure. I want mine. They don't operate. How many people did you know who, to frankly, what's it called, abstained from sex? Like this is the type of, it's not there. We don't have that type of culture that says I'm going to go without for a higher goal. Now, a Catholic, an Orthodox Jew, oh yes, they will. How many people are practicing to that level? No, they don't even go to church. You see, that's where the problem is. We do have the power. We choose not to use it.
But that's my larger point, Joe Resino, is this is where we are in agreement. I'm saying we have the power. You're saying that we don't use it. I think we're in agreement. In other words, because we do. Listen, Joe, even let's say, how many people are in the United States? 350 million people. Is that a fair guess? Okay. Say 20% of the American people agree with us. I'm just saying, just scattered all over the 50 states. Let's say 70 million people said, guess what? I'm just using this as an example. NFL, Amazon, Apple, Google, Dick's Sporting Goods, who's now gone woke and they're going to pay for abortions and all this stuff. We're going to be the only 20% in this country to say, we are not going to use your products. We're not going to use your services. We're not giving you any money. We'll do without, or we'll find somebody else to do it. We're not going to give you any of that. And there's 70 million of us. Okay. Along the lines of what you always say on the show, Joe. Okay. They're going to respond to that. I want a quick comment, Joe, because then we're coming to the end.
Listen, Joe, I'll be truthful with you. I think Mike Church said it, and many people have said it similarly. I think we've said it the same way. Outside of a miracle, I honest to God, a miracle. God, my mother says this. We need a miracle. Joe, I'll be honest. I don't see things. We've inched a little bit, I like forward on. We need a miracle. Honest to God, people are not. We're asleep at the wheel. I mean, I read something yesterday. It's so. What's his name? I can't believe I can't think of the intellectual. He's an African-American intellectual from Harvard. He's on Twitter all the time. I can't believe I can't think of his name.
Cole.
Yes. He basically talked about vouchers. Any person in the inner city that is not for vouchers, he said, whatever political party, whatever color you are, you vote against that. Your Black lives don't matter. Not connecting the dots.
Right.
And this is what I'm saying, Joe, we are not connecting the dots.
Well, let's pray. Joe Rossano, I'm sorry to cut you off, brother. We're coming to the end of the show at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Joe Rossanello, we started this show tonight at the Crusade Channel talking about the rosary is the weapon of choice. And I think we're in total agreement that if we all pray our rosaries, all right, get down on our knees. Joe, I prayed today and I did not. I'm going through something right now personally. It was very difficult to pray. I prayed the rosary, okay, because God gave me the grace to do so. I'm just saying, if we pray our rosaries, if we use that weapon, Joe, we might have a Guadalupe moment. We got to leave it there.
Well, that's where there's the answer. I'll be honest. There's the answer.
We got to go. We're out of time. Joe Rossanello, great conversation. We want to thank you all for joining us here on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Remember, go to the website, crusadechannel.com. Open the hood, kick the tires, become a subscriber. The King Dude's awesome, and so is the rest of his lineup, not just Frontline with Joe and Joe. And follow Joe and I wherever you find us on social media, particularly Monday nights on primarily YouTube, but we're all over the place. Wherever you see us, like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.
Be well. Thank you for listening.
You have to go. So we want to thank everybody for joining us at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello on the Crusade channel. And wherever you see Joe and I on social media, please like, subscribe, share, do all that fun stuff. Help us out if you can. Remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.